My screen. If you can see my screen, thumbs up, please. I'm also going to do this, and I need to see a thumbs up if you guys can see. Fantastic. Okay, wonderful. Hello, everyone. This is our first actual session at the Gaming Academy. The one before this was basically just an intro. It's great to see you all. Let's hope I remember everything I just said before we stopped the recording previously. So today we're going to be talking a bit about game design. It's going to be a very large overview on what game design is and how it works. Naturally, I'm going to cover a lot of things, but not in depth. We do have a few game design sessions up and running on our YouTube channel as well. So please refer to them if you are interested in learning more about certain topics that the game design sessions talk about. Throughout the day, we're going to be going through these topics. You guys should be able to see them now. And as we go through them, you may have questions. Please feel free to leave them in the chat and I will answer them. But also, I will be asking you quite a few things that you can open your mic and answer. So if you are interested in doing that, please feel free to do so. For those of you that just want to listen in, you can think of this as a podcast session to a certain extent, so you can be doing quite a few things while listening to us do this. Okay, I see a hand raised. Saad, is everything okay? If it is, just let me know, and if not, that's also fine.
I think I raised by mistake. I'm sorry. Continue.
Awesome, no worries. Great. Okay, wonderful. What else? Yeah, so basically, whatever questions you guys have, let me know. If you don't have questions, don't let me know. That's also fine. And please feel free to share your ideas as we go along. So, some of the things we're going to talk about are what a game is, how a game designer should think, how you should start thinking of making the game you're making, how you should iterate on your game and just moving forward with it, remembering who you're making the game for, how you're going to be making it and what the players are going to be doing, different interest curves and making sure that the player is actually interested in staying and playing your game. We're going to talk very briefly about stories, then we're going to conclude and I will give you a few recommendations on where you can improve your game design skills. So, I'm Ashraf. I am the founder and organizer of the Gaming Academy, as you probably found out from last time. I also run the IGDA Incubation SIG, which is basically focusing on helping incubators do stuff and help teams grow their games, basically. I'm also the Arabic Games treasurer. Professionally, I'm the program coordinator right now at the Saudi Game Champions program. I'm also a game developer and designer. I've worked on over 20 games, some mobile, some PC, currently working on a console game as well to a certain extent. I've made over 20 personal projects and personal and professional projects, and I've supported over 50 other projects as the narrative design instructor at the American University of Beirut. One of the other things I had is a Game Awards Future Class Award, which is basically like, the Game Awards, and they celebrate like a bunch of people, like around 50, I think. For they did it for 3 years, and I was part of the last batch, which was very nice. So I got to go and watch the Game Awards, which was cool. So these are some of the logos of the places that I've worked at, or have volunteered at, or have started, or whatever. Yeah. So if you recognize any of these, that's great. Also, the bottom right one is Gigs, which is the Game Dev Initiative for the Global South. Currently working on helping you guys get a chance to make some really cool games over time. But we will get to that later. So, when it comes to game design, what exactly is game design? Game design is made up of two words, game and design. So I want to start by asking you guys a question. What are games? So just let me know what you guys think games are, and I will read out what you guys are saying. Or you can just raise your hand and tell me what you think a game is. So what's a game? It is an interactive movie. Okay, that's an interesting definition. Interacting with games is definitely something you do. Yalla, other things. Something that you play and spend time on and has different genres. Nice. Okay. Something you play. Play is a very interesting word to use as well, because uh technically you can play with a basketball or you can play with a friend. So it's basically a fun action that you do. Has different genres is also amazing because there are many different kinds of games and many different ways that you can play. Okay, interesting. A rule set that the player interacts with, perhaps. I like the perhaps. An amazing work of art. Any interaction with a set of rules that is meant to be fun or engaging. Okay, interesting. You mentioned rules. That's pretty good. That's really, really good. Something interactive with a start and an end. Yes, starting and ending is very important. Biased by the art of game design, but an interactive experience with often a win and loss condition that is often fun. Interesting. Okay. Love that you mentioned the art of game design. Where's the book? It's actually, ugh, it is quite literally over here. You can't see it, but you can probably recognize the colors. Anyway, so yes, absolutely. You are 100% correct about this. It's a good definition, basically. Interactive experience, most usually set for entertainment. Cool. Connection between reality and the unreal. Nice. Has a start and end with objectives. A world journey defined by the developer. Okay, interesting. So it's defined by someone. Nice. Medium of storytelling that is entirely unique from books in which you affect the ending. Okay, interesting as well. The fact that you said that it's entirely unique and where you affect the ending. Um, it's a world where you set rules of losing and winning, challenges. It might not be funny. Awesome. Okay, so you guys gave us a lot of really good definitions on what a game is. So generally, these are some other definitions as well for what a game is. It is an interactive medium of technology, so it's something that you interact with. If you don't move your character around, they're not going to move, as you guys know. It's a socializing platform, so whenever you guys are playing something that's multiplayer, sometimes you have a chance to talk with people. In other times, you might be playing a thing, and then you tell a friend about the time when you did the thing, and then you beat the boss and whatever. So that's also another way of socializing with people. It's an entertainment platform, so you go ahead, you play the game, you have a lot of fun. It's a good way to waste time. It's a good way to get to do stuff. It's an educational platform. So sometimes when you're playing a game, you get to learn some things about the way that, uh, I don't know, the way to solve puzzles, basically. So a lot of times when you are playing a game, you're not just trying to have fun, you're also trying to beat something. And this basically could teach you a lot of things. But there are also certain types of games that will be educational and help you get good basically at a certain topic, teach you something specific. Like, for example, if you've played Portal, the puzzle game, it teaches you a lot about just how to think of the world in different ways, for example, especially when it comes to actually beating the levels that you have. It's a confidence building medium because it gives you a chance to try something, to fail, and then to try again. This is something that's very wonderful and not that and does not happen as often as I would like to see it happen in the real world. It's a source of strength because it will show you that if you play a game like Dark Souls, which is super, super hard, and you end up beating a very tough boss, this gives you a source of strength that you may not be able to find elsewhere. It's obviously also an escape whenever you get to play something that you are not. For example, in Stardew Valley, you get to live in a world where you can farm and live happily and just meet different people and just chill and relax, and that's totally fine. That's not something we can all do, especially for any of us living in cities and stuff. And it gives us a chance to change the world because as the main character in the game, you get to be the one person that does all the things. And since it's your responsibility, you are going to be the one that does the thing as well as possible. What about design? So we talked about what games are. What is design? And I'm not talking about graphic design, I'm talking about game design. Like, so in the aspect of game design, what exactly is design? What would you be doing in this case? Okay, whether says the UI, the structure of something, story writing, how to make it as fun as possible, designing characters and maps, motion equations, level making, the way it was built, levels, difficulty, mechanics, assets, game levels and structures, traps and interactables, crafting the narrative and the environment, guiding the player through the game, selling something visually to an audience, charac- uh, characters, the GUI, fonts, colors, in a general sense, structuring the aforementioned rule set, put the player in a state of flow. Interesting that you use the word flow ray. Let's see, the field that the game will be a part of, making sure that the aesthetics of a game has the immersive parts needed to achieve what the game is intended for. Thinking of the target audience, gameplay, space, and variables. Cool, awesome. So we have a few more definitions for what design is. Rules and mechanics, the experience, and creating the systems of interaction. Awesome. So you guys have all given us quite a few definitions. Some of these are closer to what I'm looking for in terms of game design. Some of these are correct definitions when it comes to just general graphic design. So game design actually focuses on the creation of a game as a whole. All right. So it's about the ideation of a concept, it's about its creation and repetition in order to polish it and make something look good and feel good. Okay. It's a lot about blueprinting ideas and just sketching randomly. It's a lot about finding the fun. Why is it that a game like Mario feels fun even though what you're basically doing is moving a character around and jumping and collecting different items? It's about iteration, as we've mentioned previously in point two. It's about trying the thing over and over and finding out what it is that makes it work. It's also about knowing what to add and what to remove from a game. So, we've all been using the platform Discord, right? We're all supposed to be in there so that we can have chat, we can have talks, we can just chat with each other, we can form teams, etc., etc. Um, Discord as a concept started as a game, actually. It was a game that was not very good. The best part about it, though, was the chat service. So Discord decided to destroy their game team and just focus on creating the chat service, and that was basically it. So they knew exactly what was interesting to them about the product that they designed, and they were able to find the fun, which was basically just the voice chat, and then turn that into an app that was competing with Skype. And now Skype is gone and Discord is still here. So basically, design is not just about knowing how to make a thing. It's very much about knowing how to make a thing well. And that's the important part. So whenever you guys are designing your games, one of the most important thing to think about is what is it that I am making that makes it look and feel good? What is it about the game that I'm making that is exciting and different from everything that I've built before? What is it about my game that makes players feel like, oh, I want to come back to this again? Oh, this has affected me in a certain way. Oh, I've done so and so things. So for those of you, for example, that have played a game like Gris, Gris, it is very much a story-based game. Okay, most of what you do is walk around and jump on platforms. Very fun, very aesthetically pleasing. But its focus is very much on the journey, just like another game called Journey. A game like, for example, Call of Duty or first-person shooters, they focus very much on the guns and how the guns feel and how they interact and how you just use them and how you're able to get, like feel good when you get a headshot, for example. Fun story about design as well. I'm not sure which first-person shooter game this was, but people felt that a certain gun was way too strong. So the company basically tweaked the gun a bit and then they made it a bit, less strong because it's not supposed to be as strong as it was. The thing is, they did not change any of its stats. Let's say it was doing, I don't know, 25 damage per bullet and then 50 damage if you hit the head. Okay? People were getting a lot of headshots, people were fighting a lot, people were just doing really, really well with it. Um, in the patch notes, they said that they made the game a lot better. Sorry, they made the gun a lot. They basically nerfed it. But when you look at the stats, it was still doing 25 damage per shot and 50 damage per headshot. What they changed was the sound the bullets made when they got shot. So basically, whenever you were shooting with the gun, it sounded powerful and it gave players the confidence to shoot well. So when they changed the sound and just, decreased the volume, decreased the intensity of the gun, this basically just took away a bit of the confidence of the players. And that was enough to nerf, quote unquote, nerf the gun. So sometimes design is not just about how you make the thing, it's also about what is it that I want to get to and how am I supposed to get to this final the final result that I want. So there are many ways for you guys to become a designer. Um, so there are quite a few skills that you need to know or could have to become a designer. So there's animation, obviously. There's anthropology, which is study of uh, cultures, I think, if I'm not mistaken. There's architecture, which is basically how to build the world. You should know how to brainstorm. You should know how to think of different ideas. Understanding business is very important, especially when it comes to economy design. Cinematography, very important for making sure that you're able to create nice, beautiful cutscenes. Communication, so you can actually talk with your entire team. Creative writing, so you can make a story that makes sense and sounds good. Economics, to make sure that, uh, again, economy design, same thing with business. Engineering is super important, especially if you want to go into tech design. Playing games and knowing what a game is quite important as well. Knowing a lot about history means you can take tactics and ideas that are grounded in reality and then put them inside your game. Management, mathematics, music, psychology, public speaking, sound design, technical design, and visual arts are some of the other things that you could need as a game designer. Lots of these are things that you might have a bit of information about. A lot of these are things that you might have never heard about, and a lot of these are things that you've probably very much mastered or are very much into. If we have any engineers, could you guys like raise your hands or like tap? Okay, great. So we've got a few engineers. Do we have any architects? Do we have any animators? Do we have any artists generally? Do we have any musicians? You guys can keep your hands raised. It's totally fine. Awesome. So we have people from all different parts of life, and that's really, really, really good. And each of you has a chance in one way or another to game design, and you can each do it in your own way, shape, or form. And that's super, super cool and super, super important. All right. Because if I think of something in a certain way, you might think of it in a completely different way because you have a completely different set of tools to work with. Awesome. Does this make sense? I hope so. Thing is, these aren't all the skills that I've mentioned and all the skills that you need. However, there is one that's super, super important, and I've kind of hinted at it, kind of hadn't. It is something that you need to do that has to do with working with other people, and it's one super, super important skill. Whoever mentioned the book, please don't answer. Give people a chance. But did, whoever would like to guess, please go for it. It's one skill that you need to know. Communication. Yes, it's very, very, very close to communication, but it's not about you communicating. It is about other people communicating with you. And actually, the skill is listening. All right. You have to know what you are listening for, who you are listening to, and what you expect to get out of the listening that you're doing. All right. So feedback also works, coordinating kind of works. So basically, whenever you are making your game, you're gonna have to listen to your audience and understand what it is you're building and whether they are the right audience for the thing that you're making, and whether this is the thing that they want to see. Okay? You have to listen to your team because your team is the one that's building the game. They are the ones that are fighting for it and making sure that every single part of it actually runs. So they will know when something is throwing up red flags. They will know when something feels good. They will encourage you to make the thing that you want to make because you are all working together towards the same goal. The problems arise when I'm trying to make a game and you are trying to make a game, and these are two completely different games. Okay, let's say we both agree that we want to make a first person shooter. And I tell you, okay, we're going to have a bunch of enemies and we're going to shoot them, and we're going to jump through rooms, and then we're going to fight the final boss. And you're going to be like, okay. And then the 3D artist is going to be like, okay. And then the developer is going to be like, okay. And then the level designer is going to be like, okay. The level designer builds something that looks like Fortnite. The 3D artists builds something that plays the same way as Call of Duty does. The programmer decides to program something like Doom. And then suddenly you have this mishmash of random people that are just trying to do things together when each of these is a different genre, has a different target audience, and just plays differently no matter where you are. So by listening to each other and actually communicating correctly, as Badr mentioned, you'll be able to get the thing out the way you want to get it out. All right? Now, if you are building a game for someone that is not you or your family or your friends, then you are building a game for a client. Okay? The client doesn't necessarily mean that you are building the game for a like you're not, it doesn't need to mean that you're being hired by someone. It's also very much the people that are buying your game. Okay? So when someone wants to buy your game, you need to know what they are looking for and what are the things that you want to get to at the end. Most importantly, you have to listen to yourself. Okay? It's very, very, very important that you know what it is that you are looking for and what it is that you expect to get out of your game. Sometimes when you play the thing multiple times, you may get tired and you may feel like, oh, okay, I think it's time to bring in playtester so and so to see what's happening. It might be time for me to just step back for a bit and look at the project as a whole. It might be time for me to do something else. So basically, it's super, super, super important not just to listen to other people, like your audience again, and your team and your client. You also need to listen to what you yourself feel about the game. Listen to your gut feeling and listen to how you can make it better. And then ask. Okay? When you ask someone a question, don't wait for an answer that you were looking to hear. Understand what it is they're trying to say. It also doesn't help that a lot of times people will tell you what they think they want instead of what they actually want. So, for example, if you are making a first person shooter and some kid comes up to you and he's like, "Oh my gosh, why can't I kill everyone with one hit?" That's listening to your audience, but that's pretty bad feedback because if you make everyone die with one hit, you're suddenly making the game way too easy and it's suddenly going to be super, super boring. So, understand that what they're looking for is some more power or some more juiciness in the game and try to add this as an example. Okay? So, when you are a designer, what are some of the things that you think of? Your role as a designer is to create experiences. Okay? You're not here to create a game, you are here to create an experience. And an experience is very, very much related to the emotions that you are trying to get to the player. Okay? If I am making a game like, uh, I don't know, let's say FIFA. Okay. I guess it's not called FIFA anymore. But if I'm trying to make a football game, what I'm trying to get is the feeling of running a team, shooting the ball, scoring. It's kind of like simulating to a certain extent the feeling of being on a football field. If I'm making a game like Rematch, I think it was called Rematch, right, guys? The one that's they keep calling it what's it called? Rocket League, but with people instead of cars. Um, so when I first heard the name, I was really confused because what do you mean you're making football, but you're not basing it off of football? You're basically basing it off of uh cars playing football. And then you look at the game and you look at the way it's being made, and you will understand what I'm saying when it comes to creating experiences. You're not just making the game as a 2v2 football game, you're very much making it as a full-on experience that kind of replicates whatever Rocket League was making. Um, Another game that you might think of, for example, is something like I don't know, let's say, hmm. I mean, the new Death Stranding, for example, is also very much focused. Yes, Dredge also works. Jad, what are the feelings that Dredge gives you? What are the kind of things that you feel whenever you're playing a game like this? So for those of you who have seen Subnautica, for example, it's a game where you go underwater and you like explore different creatures and stuff, and you just get to swim underwater and see some huge crazy things. It's very, very, very fun, and it's not for someone that's afraid of the water. Jad, I'm waiting for you as well to tell me how you feel about Dredge and what are the experiences that you have experienced, basically, while playing the game. Um, yes, Subnautica is really fun. So basically, the point is that when you are trying to make a game, think about what it is you want the players to feel. Do I want them to feel excited? Do I want them to feel thoughtful? Do I want them to feel interested in whatever it is that they're building? Do I want them to feel smart? Do I want them to feel scared? What is it that the game that I am building can actually give me? Because that's basically what matters. Okay? Does this make sense? So, as an example, once I was building a game. It was a It was one of my favorite games that I've made actually. It's called Mushroot, Mushrot, where you basically play as a hive mind of mushrooms and you use your bodies and your friends' bodies to solve different puzzles. It's very fun, it's very silly, and it was very fun to make because the vision of what the game is and the way it was designed and the way it was drawn was all very, very much in um, like connected together in one way or another. So Jad said that he feels very relaxed while playing the game and wants to collect all the fish and unlock everything, which is really, really good because what they want from you is to just rest, relax, and fish. So they get the idea through. Jenna also mentioned Firewatch. Yes, absolutely. Firewatch is very much an experience. Um, I would recommend that you guys look it up if you don't know what the game is like. But yeah, so Firewatch is a very, very good example of what an experience as a game could be crafted like. Awesome. So, when you are a designer, there are a few things that you should build. So there's an axis of different games that you're going to look at. Sorry, your game is going to be on this axis of like a cross, basically. So you've got the aesthetics, the mechanics, the story, and the technology. If you guys have any idea about each of these, please type out what you think each of them is. I will start talking about story first, so that I'll give you guys a chance to try to guess what aesthetics, mechanics, and technology focus on. So obviously, the story focuses mostly on what you're going to be telling and what the player is going to go through. And you're going to go from point A to point B to point C to point D. And then once you're done with all of this, you're going to complete whatever it is the game is about. However, if you don't do one, two, and three, then you might get stuck with four, five, and six. So, for example, if you end up instead of saving the princess from the castle, you decide to burn the castle down, then maybe when you go back to the king, he's going to fight with you. But you've already recruited the dragon that was saving the that was defending the princess to your horde, and now you have a dragon on your side. So suddenly the story is very different from what you expect it to be. Do we have any guesses on what the rest are? Okay. Mechanics focus on what it is that your player is going to be doing. So if I am playing a game like, um, I don't know, Mario, I'm going to have a character that's going to move forward and backwards. He's going to be able to jump. He's going to be able to sprint. And sometimes he might be able to shoot fireballs for some reason. So basically, the mechanics of of the character, sorry, is to run, jump, and shoot. Okay? They are the things that they are basically the verbs that the player is going to go through to get across with the game. So Badr says aesthetics is how the graphics look, mechanics is how fun the game feels to play, technology is how advanced the mechanics are. Osama says aesthetic is like being able to give certain emotions to the player without direct interactions, so the player would have to observe the world and environment. I feel like technology would be VR, PC, mobile, and console. Cool, awesome. So, um, since we were talking about mechanics, so how fun the game feels to play is a pretty close definition to what it should be. Yes, mechanics very much focus on what the player is going to do and how they're going to do it. Okay. If you're playing a game like Hollow Knight, for example, you're jumping around, you're dashing around, you're flying around, you're double jumping, you're attacking, you're dodging, blah, blah, blah. So these are all the mechanics that you're going to be doing. Yes, 100% Jason. Mechanics is like the double jump or the dash or whatever. And it's very important to know what kind of game you're building in order to be able to do certain things. Mechanics is how the player should play the game. Yes, Keegan. That is a good definition of what mechanics are. So you're not, for example, going to have a game about uh, jumping when the entire game is set underwater because you can already float anywhere you want to go. It doesn't make sense for you to jump in this case. Um, when you have a game like, I don't know, sushi making simulator, it doesn't make sense for you to have a gun because you're just going to be making sushi. So why would you want to add a gun into a sushi making simulator? Same thing with most simulators. Like if you are doing the Euro Truck simulator, you're going to be driving around mostly. So it doesn't make sense for you to have parkour, for example, in the game. Yeah, awesome. So I'm guessing this makes sense for mechanics now. Aesthetics, correct. Well done. So aesthetics is more about the visual, the auditory, and interactive elements. Well done, Jana. Um, what else have we said about aesthetics? Aesthetics is being able to give certain emotions without direct interactions. I mean, this is a very good way of saying it's about the visuals. It's a very, upside down way of saying it. So yes, also Badr, you mentioned it. It's very much about how the game looks and what kind of feeling you want the players to feel when they look at your game or when they hear your game. The aesthetics very much focuses on the general look of the game. All right, so you could go for example, a very dark look or a very happy, childish look, and then go with the mechanics in the opposite direction. Um, if you guys have seen the weird show Happy Tree Friends as kids, I'm really sorry to hear that. But it is something that very much defines what aesthetics could be like. It could be like very cute, very pretty, but then suddenly it goes very dark and very weird. If we look at the difference between PUBG and Fortnite, we can see that both of these games focus on a battle royale, so the mechanics are slightly similar, at least the core mechanics. However, the aesthetics are completely different. In both of these, the story doesn't really matter much. However, Fortnite very much relies on storytelling to give you a general idea on something big or something exciting or something cool happening in one way or another. Um, when it comes to technology, which is the last one, Labubu style. Oh my gosh, Kareem. Um, does aesthetics include sounds as well or only visuals? It could include sounds, yes, because it very much focuses on what it is that you are seeing and what are the external factors that are affecting the way that you perceive the game. So yes, it could include sounds as well. Finally, we have technology. So technology is a very misleading word. Technologia, yes. It's a very misleading word because it is a more broad definition than just tech. It's very much where am I going to play the game and how am I going to play it. So someone actually hit the nail on the head. Marianne, yes, correct. The technology might be VR, PC, console, mobile, but it's not just that. It is also card games, board games out in the field, it's, for example, the technology for playing basketball is a hoop and a ball and a court. If you want to get more specific as well, you can also say the lines so that you know what lines you have to cross or shouldn't cross. Card games, for example, their technology is just the cards. Board games, it's the board, it's the pieces, it's the manual, etc., etc. When it comes to VR games, for example, the technology is the headset, it's the hands, etc., etc. Sometimes on a PC game, it could just be the mouse and the keyboard, but then suddenly you might include controller support. So suddenly there's a controller involved. There's a game called, I think it's called Before Your Eyes, where every time you blink, the game changes and you just move forward in life. So this uses your camera as part of the technology as well. Some horror games, for example, also use the microphone because they track the sounds, and according to the sounds, the enemy will either come closer to you or run away from you. So basically, tech involves all of these. All right. And as a game designer, you're going to have to juggle thinking of all of these to make sure that your game actually connects all of them in the best ways possible. Having said this, you don't need to get a 10 out of 10 on all of these. For example, a game like Tetris does not care much about its aesthetics. It doesn't care at all about its story. The technology has been evolving on where you can play Tetris. So now you can play it on mobile, on PC, on your TVs, etc., etc. The mechanics are the most important thing for a game like Tetris. And the mechanics are still very simple. All you do is rotate objects and then sometimes push them down if you want to, or you can just let them fall. And then whatever happens is whenever you have a full row, that row disappears and then it goes down. So it's not always about it's not always about all of the axes. It's just very important that you find out what game you are building, why you are building it, and where on these different spectrums this appears, basically. All right? Does this make sense? So I guess I named a few games, but if you guys want to name a few more, please go ahead. Which games rely on each of these on each of these elements the most? So, for example, a game that is very story driven might rely on story, obviously. A game that relies on aesthetics, like I don't know, let's see, the game that I'm working on, for example, A Heavy Morning, it is a narrative-based game where you're just going to be pointing and clicking. So the focus is very much going to be on how good the game looks because we've got everything drawn in frame by frame um, art, basically. God of War could God of War be considered for the story? Yes, in the later games for sure. So it is a lot on the story, but it is also a lot on the mechanics. All right. Mechanics, it takes two. Yes, correct. But also the studio loves to focus on art. So there's also that. Um, Aesthetic and story, God of War, mechanics, Ultra Kill. Okay, cool. Cool, cool, cool. Breath of the Wild. Where would you put Breath of the Wild, Nisreen? Night of the Woods for story? Absolutely. Sky, Noor, I think you mean Sky Children of Light, correct? I think Sky would focus quite a bit on aesthetics. It also focuses it's pretty heavy on mechanics as well, considering that you can see other people in the game. And since this is a live story, it just keeps going. I think they recently, like a year ago or something, released it on PC as well. So they are slowly expanding on their technology. Story for Undertale, absolutely, 100%. Stardew for aesthetics and mechanics. Yes, aesthetics for sure. Story doesn't have too much. Mechanics, yep, makes sense. Awesome. So you guys have a general idea on what this is. And that's really, really, really good. If you guys are interested in seeing games with technology, there are a few, I think, alternative controller game jams or something of the sort, where people just like make different games with different types of controllers. So one of the weird ones that I've seen was a toilet. Like you sit on a toilet and you control the thing with a plumber or with a plumbing tool, whatever it's called. It was very weird. It was very, very cool. And it was just like a really weird way to actually use the tech. So that's quite fun. Awesome. So you guys have a general idea about what the games are and how they're going to be working. So how would a designer start thinking of the game that they're building? The first thing they think about is a theme. So again, we want to look at what resonates with the player, what it is that you want your game to do. And if you are making it through a game jam, what should a game jam's theme consist of? All of this helps you understand a better way of getting your game and tackling the subject that you are handling at the moment. All right. Um, a lot of times, the thing that you are trying to build, uh, as we've mentioned, is going to be at the end of the day an experience. Okay, it's going to be a game that you play, but you play it because you want the players to feel something or to do something or to note something or. So, depending on the kind of theme that you have in mind, you're going to be building a different type of game. All right. If again, if you want to go for a horror aesthetic, it's going to be very different than if you're going to want to go for a game for kids, for example. If you want to teach people something specific, then you might look into themes in a different way. For example, if I want to teach people about what to do in an emergency of sorts. So I might create a realistic game that focuses on the theme of natural disasters, you know? And depending on that, I'm going to be creating a different type of game with potentially hyper realistic graphics because I really want people who play this to go through it not as a game, but as a simulation. All right? So, quick activity. I want you guys to tell me about one of your favorite games in a game jam and why it's your favorite game. If any of you would like to talk, please just raise your hand and unmute. If not, totally fine. You can just type it out. And for those of you who have not been in a game jam, totally fine. Just check out other people's stories. For me, I had quite a few funny games that I've made before. I mentioned Mushroot previously. So Mushroot, the theme was it wasn't home. I forgot what the theme was actually. If I remember, I'll tell you guys. Um, there was another game. Oh yeah, it was Roots. Heba, why do you remember? That's so funny. Okay, wonderful. Yes, the theme was Roots. So a lot of people made games that had you coming back to your roots. A lot of people, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. The game's literally called Mushroot. Horrible of me. Anyway, yes, with mushrooms. So a lot of people made games where you just had to plant a tree, for example, and have the roots stick to the ground. Um, we decided to make a game where you play as a mushroom and you can root yourself to the ground, and then depending on where you're rooting yourself, certain things happen. So if you root yourself to a flat surface, like a horizontal surface, then you can bounce on the head of that mushroom. But you can also stick yourself to a wall. So that's like that's face planting, which was another pun we made. And basically, you just stick yourself to the wall, and then you can use that body to just jump and reach the higher places. So it was quite fun because we played around a lot on the theme of what a mushroom is and how uh, rooting yourself to a certain place lets you get somewhere specific. And we wanted to make a platformer at the time. So basically, by combining the theme, which was roots, with the mechanics, which are platforming, uh, with a special mechanic, which was creating your own platforms, we were able to create a very, very fun game. Hadi said he once made a rhythm horror-ish game for a Halloween game jam. So yeah, it was Halloween. You're obviously gonna have to make a horror-ish or horror-y kind of game. And Hadi decided to also, push towards that and make a rhythm game as well, which is very, very cool. There is a game that's kind of like this, which is called Crypt of the Necrodancer, technically. It is a horror-y, horror-ish rhythm game. Ahmad said he joined the Game Jam challenge with gameplay as the focus, and participants were given multiple tiers of mechanics and choosing one. So Ahmed chose dashing for both the movement and attacking in an arcade-esque gameplay. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Awesome. So Ahmed decided to focus on mechanics of this theme, and create something where you were basically dashing and attacking, which is honestly great. Sorry, so you chose dashing for both moving and attacking. I guess this reminds me of like, ninjas that just like just fly around and just cut things as they go around, which is really cool. Awesome. So in the three games that we've mentioned, it was a samurai. Yeah, great, wonderful. Glad I was right about that. Awesome. So as we've mentioned, in each of these games, we had a certain theme that was the main focus, and then according to that, we decided to build a game around this. So whenever you guys are building your game, think of a core theme, a core mechanic, a core thing that you want to build, and then build around that. Spin your web around this thing and make it into something really cool. Okay? It's very important that you pay attention to the thoughts that you have because we are in a stage of attention deficiency, whether we like it or not. For example, when I'm not uh, doing something like, talking to friends or eating or whatever, I'm usually on my phone. And this is because I want my mind to always be engaged with something. But sometimes the thing you want to engage with are your own thoughts. That's pretty important and something that we're losing. So it's super important to pay attention to your own thoughts and wonder about what it is that you're making. The way Mario came about is the creator was actually on a train and he was just looking out from the window and he was just really wondering where all these pipes went underground. And it would be so cool if I could just go through them and just travel the world. This was practically how the concept of Mario came about. And now it's one of the most successful games ever. It's also cool and awesome for you to save your ideas. I usually have a notebook. Right now, it's over there, where I get to save my ideas. I just read a few things. Sometimes I just open my notes app and save them, because sometimes something funny comes out of them in one way or another, and then you get to make the game concept that you want to make. It's very important for you to know what to listen to and what to leave, especially when it comes to your own thoughts. So you might be thinking, oh my gosh, it would be so cool if I decided to make a game about um, ducks that fight other ducks and then use the ducks as houses. And it would be kind of like a concept of like snowmen having a snow fight. But then you might think to yourself, never mind, this doesn't make any sense, or something of the sort, even though that does sound like a good idea. Uh, but yeah, so understand what kind of ideas that you need to listen to and actually keep, versus things that you just think might be good for later. A lot of times, whenever I'm making games, especially in game jams, and we're just ideating different ideas, we usually just come up with a few things and then end up throwing most of them away. Instead of throwing them away, just put them to the side, okay? But know what you need to listen to. It's super important that you learn how to rest. This is something that I'm also working on at the moment. It's very important to know how to rest and how to let yourself actually unwind from whatever it is that you're making. Because if you spend too much time on it, you're gonna mess up, basically. Um, if you are tired and you decide that something needs 4 hours to get made, it might take 8 hours, and you could have just spent 4 hours sleeping and getting your energy back, and then maybe 3 hours working on the thing instead of eight. Burnout is very much a thing, and it sucks. And I hope you guys don't go through it. But yeah, uh, so the entire point of this slide is to say that whenever you guys want to come up with a good ideas, let yourself think of them, process these ideas, and then just uh, let your mind wander. Okay, the way I usually do it is I go on walks. Sometimes I have music on, sometimes I don't, and I just walk around and just let my thoughts flow freely. It very much helps to go on a walk, especially if it's sunny, because that makes sure your thoughts actually stick to the funny, bright side of life. So, yeah, that's always important. Okay, next we've got iteration. It's very important that whenever you're building something, you don't go through just one draft, you go through multiple drafts. All right? So, whenever you want to make a game, actually filter through your ideas. So think of something in broad strokes. So as an example, right now, I just gave this duck example of like, using ducks as a way to build a house or whatever, especially when you're fighting with other ducks. But then I was like, wait a minute, can't you just use the snowmen as that? Because snowmen are like men made of snow, but you also have like a lot of snow fights, which basically means that you can just use snowmen having to use their bodies to throw snowballs at each other. And if you do that though, would that make the other snowmen stronger or weaker? Or would it just really depend on how hard or how soft you throw the snowball? And if this is the case, then wouldn't it make sense for you to have a friend that's throwing snowballs softly at you so you can gain health versus you throwing snowballs very strongly at the enemies so you can just knock out parts of them? And that's basically just how you start thinking of a certain idea and iterating through it. So it's very important to know whether this is something that also fits in your lane. So I love making silly games, and this is a silly game idea. And honestly, I think I would make something like this. A game that I wouldn't make is a dark, gritty, realistic first-person shooter because I don't care for these kind of games. They're just gonna bore me out of my mind, and I'm not gonna care for them. Another genre that I find hard to get into is strategy. So I cannot play a game of Civ, for example, Civilization, because it's too much for me. It's not something that I'm interested in. It's not something that I care about at all. Um, so yeah, I'm, for example, someone that will never enjoy a game like this because it's just simply not my type. So I know that I am not the target audience, and I know that I'm not going to enjoy the game. But I do know that other people are going to enjoy these kinds of games, and that's totally cool. And I'll probably learn a bit about what makes these games interesting before I start to make them. Um, yeah. Another thing that's important to think about is whether the game's experience is fun and good for your target audience. So, for example, if you play RuneScape, you might be very interested in grinding every single day for a couple of hours, just to get, whatever items you need. And if the game can offer this experience, then that's great. If you are not someone that cares about grinding, then you might be interested in, I don't know, boss rush games. And if you give someone that's interested in boss rushes a game like grinding, again, like RuneScape, they're gonna hate you for it. They're gonna hate that concept of MMORPGs because that's not what they're looking for. Um, you might be wondering as well, like, what are the kind of things that your game can offer? Uh, what are things that are different and will pull players from the previous games that they enjoyed to your game? What is it that makes your game different and exciting for other people to play? Will this game sell is a very important one as well. Sometimes we want to make a game for ourselves, and that's totally fine. But if you plan on making money, you have to know whether the market has place for the kind of game that you want to make or not. As an example, um, there were a few people, like I think a few years back, trying to make a skateboarding game, and they could not get funding for it at all because there was literally no one funding skateboarding games. If you do this, you're not going to find anyone that's going to buy these games or going to give you the money to make these games. So sometimes it's good to look at whatever sells in the market to know what kind of games you want to make. Having said this, people's tastes change wildly and super quick. So you might be building the next what's it called? Repo, for example. But suddenly everyone has moved away from games like Repo and is going into games like I don't know, house painting simulator or whatever. House flipper, whatever. No, so Peak is kind of similar to Repo in a way. You're still playing with friends, you're still doing silly things with friends. So they're still kind of similar. But I'm saying like people might suddenly be interested in a completely different genre. Having said this, a game like Peak sold like what, 2 million copies in a couple of days, or like a million copies or whatever. Like that's a lot of copies, you know. And now this is an example. If let's say you're building a game like Peak, you could be like, oh yeah, Mr. Investor, by the way, like I know that my game is gonna sell because it does what Peak does but better, and Peak sold 1 million copies in a week. So you can only imagine what kind of like sales we can get, etc., etc. An important thing as well to do is whether to understand whether you can build the game or not. Sometimes people are going to be like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to make the next Skyrim," and they are a team of one with 0 days of experience. Please don't do that. Please, please, please don't do that. It's super important to know what are the things that you can make, and to know how you're supposed to actually make the stuff. Okay? So if you can make it, that's great. If you can't, find someone who can. If you can't find someone that can make it, probably make something else. Um, can a community connect to your game? It's very important to know that the game that you are making needs to get people excited about it and get people sharing what it is they're doing. Balatro did this very, very, very well. Okay. Sometimes all they did was reply with a picture of their Joker. And that was enough to get people go crazy. Sometimes all it takes is like a quick, cute interaction with someone. Like for example, when I remember during COVID, Doom and and Animal Crossing were coming out at the same time. So there was a lot of fan art of them, doing crossovers. The official accounts, I think, interacted with each other, etc., etc. So this basically created a community interaction. Finally, do people actually enjoy the game? This very much depends on playtesting and trying your best to see whether people are interested in whatever it is that you're making. If people are not interested in your game is not going to be useful. If your game is for yourself, cool, perfect, do whatever you want. If you want others to play it, let others play it and let them give you honest feedback. And depending on the feedback you get, you will decide what you want to do with your game and how you want to move forward. All right? Hope this makes sense. If anything doesn't make sense, please let me know and I can expand on it as needed. Okay? Now, point four, as we've mentioned, is very much about looping in on your ideas. It's about how quickly you can create something, test it out, get feedback, and then try again. Okay? There's something called agile development, which is basically just iterating on the thing. It's basically what I just mentioned. The entire reason you do this is to mitigate risk of actually doing too much and realizing at the end, oh, wait, this sucks. Oh, wait, I shouldn't have done it this way. Blah, blah, blah. All right? So, for example, let's say I wanted to make a platformer game, okay? What I would do is I would start by making my character, and then I would check whether the movement feels right, you know? Maybe the movement might be a bit slow at the beginning, but then speed up. Maybe I want the character to just go pixel perfect speed all the time. Maybe I want to make something that's like skiing, so it's like a skiing platformer. So I want people to slowly start going up and then go faster and faster and faster, etc., etc. So I will start with movement and see whether I can get the movement right. Let's say after this, I want to go for the jump. So I'll then put a bunch of platforms and test out different jump heights and jump feelings. And whether the jump feels good or not will change the way that I interact with the game. Okay, so if I'm interested in making a pixel perfect platformer like Celeste, then much of my focus will be on um, making sure that I can hit those pixel perfect jumps as needed. If I want to be a bit more forgiving in my jumps, then I might take another game as a reference, and accordingly, I'm going to build different things. All right. But the important thing is once you build the thing, play test it, see what others think. Test it by yourself, test it with your friends, your family, your team, it doesn't matter. And check whether it feels good before you decide to move forward and build the next thing. All right? So, if you guys want to productively prototype, um, have a question. Be like, what is it that I want to make feel good? What is it that I want to test? What is it that I want to make? Stick to this question and just do it as quickly as you can. Okay? Once you do it quickly and you see whether this works or not, throw it away. Okay? You're gonna be building this in a better way later on. So it's totally fine if you just try something and tell yourself, this is a trial. I'm going to be doing this just for a tiny bit. And once it's ready, I will then do it cleanly. Okay? Um, an example of this for the artists, for example. You don't need to create your full character with a fleshed out background with the animations and before you decide whether this is the look that you want, you know? And once it's ready, you can throw the sketch away and then build something that's much, much nicer. Okay? Um, Again, you need to prioritize prototypes when you are prototyping because that's when you should be doing it. Okay? A lot of times when you have a team of, for example, two or three coders, for example, you could just prototype at the same time, each of you doing something different. And for example, someone checking for a jump of height 2, someone checking for a jump of height 5, and someone checking for no jump but jetpack. And then suddenly you have a different kind of prototype that you are building. All right? And then you can test all three at the same time and then see which one feels best. Okay? Another important thing you can do is look at paper prototypes. So sometimes you don't even need to build the game in engine. Sometimes you can just build the game on paper. Let's say you want to make a game like Slay the Spire or Balatro or I don't know what other card games are there. Hearthstone or what's it called? The Witcher card game. Gwent, etc., etc. If you want to build something like this, then what you can do very easily is just build a bunch of things in parallel with each other. And sorry, not build it in parallel. So you can build the actual cards and then play them. And then depending on how you play them and how good they feel, you can decide whether these stats match up or not. Okay? Interactivity is optional. You don't need everything to interact with you, especially when you are trying to just uh, test a thing out. All right? Um, if you do need to use an engine instead of just papers, then you just have to quickly do the loop just to see whether something feels good or not. Um, an important thing to do as well is to build a toy. A toy is something you play with, okay? If the toy feels fun to play with, then just build that. And once this is ready, you then build the game. An example of this again is Mario. So whenever people make Mario, whenever Nintendo works on a Mario game, they focus mostly on making sure that Mario feels good to jump around with, that Mario feels good to run with, that Mario feels good to ground pound with or attack enemies with. Once they have these mechanics, the toy, ready, they then start building the world and the way that Mario is going to go through the world and interact with it and. Okay? So, to summarize this slide, whenever you guys are building your game, especially at the beginning, make sure that you start with a very basic concept and try it out. Okay? Make sure it feels nice before committing to the project and actually going through with it. All right? So yeah, make sure that you remember that you are making the game for the player and not just for yourself. And this is why it's very important to test with other people. Okay? Demographics. There are different people that you can build a game for. These are the different age ranges. Depending on each of them, people are going to enjoy different types of games. Okay? This obviously is going to change and get up to date as we grow older, as our generation and the generations that are younger than us are going to get into games. And depending on how much time you have, how much effort you want to spend on a game, you're going to be making different things and you are going to be playing at different levels. Okay? So, for example, someone that's between the ages of 13 and 18 is going to have a lot more time than someone that is between the ages of 35 and 50. And thus, if you want the 35 to 50 to play, you might have to look at a different way to make a game that actually respects their time and respects their efforts and the kind of efforts that they want to put in the game. Okay? So, someone called LeBlanc created a taxonomy of different game pleasures because at the end of the day, you're playing a game to have fun. You're playing a game to enjoy yourself. These are all the different forms of game pleasure. You've got sensation, which is how good it feels. You've got fantasy, which is trying to pretend you're somewhere else. You've got narrative, which is the story. You've got the challenge, which is how hard or how easy the game is. You've got fellowship, which is how nice it feels to play the game with others. It could be NPCs, by the way. It's just the feeling of camaraderie, basically. You've got discovery, which is trying to find different things. For example, a lot of people that play Zelda, that enjoy Zelda, enjoy the process of discovery. They enjoy the process of being somewhere and just finding, oh, what's this over there? Oh, what's this over here? Oh, what's this that I'm doing? So their interest is much more in the discovery section of things. Whereas if you're playing a game like Fury, which is a boss rush, your focus is much more on the challenge, for example. Next, you've got expression. So if you play something like The Sims, your interest is much more in um, either putting yourself in the game or simulating a certain act or activity or whatever. And then finally, submission, which is basically just letting yourself go and letting the game take you to different places. All right. Bartle also had a taxonomy for different players. So we've got achievers, we've got killers, we've got socializers, and we've got explorers. I don't know why I read them this way, but that's okay. Elden Ring is about discovering the world, yes, correct. But at the same time, it's very much about the challenge that the bosses provide for you. You don't go into Elden Ring thinking, "Oh, what a pretty game this is. I'm gonna just, tra la la into different places." Because there are certain places where you're just gonna feel like, "Oh my God, this is horrible. I hate being here." Um, and other places are gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, this is very pretty," obviously. But Elden Ring very much focuses on the challenge much more than just the aesthetics. Caled is Let's not talk about Caled. Yes, so basically, whenever you're building a game, you also have four different player types. So you have achievers, which are people that are trying to do something and then get rewarded for it. They're the ones that like to get the bravo at the end. You've got explorers, which are the people that like to go around the world. So if you play Elden Ring specifically to just go around the world and avoid killing people or like enemies or whatever and just seeing what exists there, then you could be an explorer in this case. Socializers are people that play games with others. So if you are someone that enjoys It Takes Two, let's say you enjoy what's it called? The cooking game where you're all fighting your friends. Um I forgot what it's called. Help me guys. Not Skyrim, not Play It Up. No, 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 it's an old game. You can play it on Switch. Overcooked. Yes, thank you, Noor. 100%. So yes, if you are a socializer, you might enjoy Overcooked, you might enjoy Repo, you might enjoy Peak, you might enjoy Call of Duty, you might enjoy Fortnite. Any game with multiplayer can have a bit of a socializing aspect. Same with a game like Mario Party. And then finally, you have the killers, which are basically the people that just want to go and shoot the thing in the face and then just beat it up and then win. All right. Assassin's Creed Black Flag made me an explorer. That's actually really, really cool. That's awesome to hear. That's really good. Skyrim for the experience. Yes. So Skyrim, it really depends on how you decide you want to play the game. Um, so yes, Minecraft also has all of them, and depending on how you play it, you're gonna be achieving different things. Um, a lot of games have all four, Jason. But it's very much about focusing on at least one of them. Because the more focused you are on a certain game type, the better your audience will receive your game. So, so whenever you are building a certain game idea, you have to know who it is you are building the game for. You have to know who it is that is going to enjoy the game most, and then lean as much as you can into that concept. One of the biggest problems that many people face is they try to play it safe by adding all of them. But once you do this, you practically give your game no flavor, because suddenly the game doesn't know what it is. Goat Simulator has all four. That is a very terrifying sentence. um, okay, so at least one of them should be the main focus. Yes, absolutely. When you are building, especially when you're building your first game, you have to go as closely as possible to whatever concept you are most interested in, and then build on that. Um, one of my favorite like lines or something that someone has told me is build a game that some people love and others absolutely hate. So for example, I hate um shooting games, as I've mentioned before. I could never get into a shooting game because my aim is very bad. I don't like war generally. Um, but I'm totally fine with playing a game like The Binding of Isaac, which is, very dark as well, very weird, very gritty. It's just I suck at shooting things. Uh, so basically, my point is that I am someone that would never play a killers type game because it's not my type. I do enjoy achiever type games and explorer type games much more than socializer and killer games. And that's totally fine. That's just basically uh the kind of thing that I like to do. Okay. Yes, hack and slash could work for killer. Uh, yeah, that's very true. Okay, Call of Duty also works for killers as well. Yes, absolutely. Valorant works for killers and socializers. Correct. It does not basically have a lot of explorers. If you are someone that likes to collect all the trophies in a game, then you are closer to an achiever as well. Okay. Let's see what else do you guys have. Someone mentioned Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley has a lot about the exploration section and the achievement section. It has a bit of socializing with different NPCs. It has a lot of socializing when you decide to play it multiplayer. The killer aspect doesn't really exist, but it is given to you as an option through the mines that you get to visit. What is Clash Royale? That's a good question, Keegan. Clash Royale can go under socializer to a certain extent because you're playing with and against others. It also focuses on achievement because you want to collect the cards that will allow you to get better so you can go higher in the level that you have. It can obviously go under killer as well, but the killer section focuses much more on um, well, I mean, I guess it could work under killer pretty well as well because you are focusing on destroying your opponent. Um, 2D platformers, depending on the kind of 2D platformer you're building, it's going to focus on achievement, exploration, and killing much more than socializing. So if a 2D platformer has a lot of enemies, then it's gonna lean more towards the killer section. If it has a lot more of different areas that you're gonna look at, then it's gonna go closer to the explorer section. And speaking of both of these, by the way, we do have a we do have the tutorials for building your 2D platformer in Unity up on our YouTube channel. So you can always take a look at that if you're interested in building stuff like that. Hollow Knight is Killer, Explorer, Achiever. Um, I would say it's more Achiever, Explorer, Killer in that order because anyone that plays Hollow Knight and is interested in getting to the later challenges um, is very much going to look into the achievement section of things. Omar, I don't know how far into Hollow Knight you are, but you get to a point where you can fight certain things in a certain place. I'm just gonna say that randomly. And some people focus on trying to beat that place with as many things um, that make it hard to do. Yes, exactly. So that's how it makes them achievers. Yes, the Pantheons, exactly. Uh, what about simulator games? Simulator games are, to a certain extent, they are the achievers, and then explorers, and then socializers, and then obviously not killers. Um, the reason they go under the achievement is because you are trying to do something. You start from a very um, basic store, for example, or basic thing, and then you slowly start to build your empire. I don't know if you guys have seen uh, a game about a hole. It's basically a game where you dig a hole. That's it. And then you want to try to find like the gold at the bottom of the well. So in a game like this, it is a simulating game, and it's about exploring the kind of area. But there are also achievements, obviously, that you can get. And if you do them, then you go under the achiever part. Lilia asked about visual novels. So visual novels are very much in the exploration kind of thing, because you are exploring a story and trying to understand where you're going with it. You want to know where the players want to get to at the end of this all. Okay? So yeah, I hope this kind of answers your questions. I guess this has been good. Uh, Clash of Clans, Socializer and Achiever. Yes. The reason it falls under Socializer is because the game very heavily depends on you and your clan and has you playing with other people. You know, it's not really a choice about whether, I mean, it is a choice for you to not play with others, but it's heavily tilted towards having you join other people and work with them. Can Clash of Clans be killer? Um, very little, I would say, because the focus of the game is much more on the socializing aspect and being with others, much more than just killing. It's definitely not Explorer though, because there's very little to explore. More strategy in RTS. Yes, exactly, exactly. Blasphemous is yes, it does have the killer section, it does have the explorer section, and it does have the achievement section. The killer and the exploration, I would flip these two around depending on your play style. Okay? But the game is technically available for both of these. Isn't this automatically picked for you based off of the game you decide to build? Um, Depends on the size of your team and depends on the kind of game you're trying to make. So, yes, and the main reason I'm telling you guys about these is so that you are aware of what kind of thing you want to do when building your game. So I want you guys to lean into one of these, and I want you guys to think of the thing you're making, um, so that you can make the thing in the best way it can be. I don't want you guys to build a game that's like 25% achievement, 25% exploration, 25% social, 25% killer. I want you guys to go like, I don't know, 70% explorer, and then achiever and socializer are like, I don't know, 20 each, and then killer is 10%, for example. Okay? Noor, what do you mean by game room? I mean, assuming it's a room, I'm guessing there are other players. Oh, oh, the game called Rooms. Isn't it the puzzle game? If it's a puzzle game, then it's closer to exploration and achievement. Because you're basically exploring different rooms and you're trying to figure out what the puzzle is. Oh, you create rooms. Why are you creating rooms? I've never heard of this game actually. That's very interesting. Let's talk about this in a bit. Okay. We still have, I think, 4 or 5 other sections. So I'm probably gonna zoom through them because we're also close on time. How are you guys feeling, by the way? Let me know if you guys are good on time, if you guys want me to go faster or slower. Okay? So, the most important sensation that you want to give the player is pleasure. Okay? You want them to enjoy being in the game. A lot of people enjoy being scared. So, even when you're playing a horror game, it's still quite enjoyable in one way or another. When you guys are giving them a chance to explore, you're giving them a feeling of wonder, you're giving them a feeling of excitement, you're giving them a feeling of, oh my gosh, this is so, so cool. So a lot of what you're doing has to do with the sensation of pleasure, and you want to please the players in as a good way as possible. Okay? There are many ways of giving your players this feeling. Um, Sometimes it's through anticipation, so what people expect. It's about completion. So basically, achievers are very interested in completing certain things. Some people enjoy seeing others fail. So I don't know if you guys saw the clip of Peak where some people were like on 2 different mountains, and then these guys shot like a sleeping dart at the other guys, and the other one fell asleep. It was very silly. It was very, very funny. Um, so that's basically delight in other people's misfortune. Gift giving is basically just sending people different gifts. Humor is laughing at whatever is happening at the moment. Uh, Possibility is basically just again going under the exploration section and being like, I wonder what are the other things that could happen. Pride and accomplishment is very much about knowing what it is that you are doing and being very proud of what it is that you are building. So, for example, if you're playing Minecraft and you decide to build a beautiful castle, you might be very proud of your accomplishment. Surprise is very important as well. It's usually something you see in funny games as well because you never know what comes next. Thrill is something that you can feel in a game like God of War because you're just like, defeating these giant monsters or like super strong people and you're just really, really excited to get into it. Triumph over enemies is basically, fighting other people, winning, defeating them in one way or another. It's also very much in both single player and multiplayer. And obviously, wonder is a very, very big thing. You might just feel like, oh wow, this looks so cool. This looks so, so, so nice. If you look at a game like what's it called? Uh Breath of the Wild, when you finish the tutorial section, you go up to the top of like this hill thing, and then suddenly the entire map is there sitting in front of you, and you're just looking out at it in a form of wonder. So choose one, two, maximum three of these and use them as your pillars, as your focus of what the things you want the player to feel through your games are like, and then build on that. All right? This is basically the general section on making sure that the game is as pleasant as possible to your players. Okay? Whenever you're building your game, you need to have clear goals for the player. There needs to be no distractions in terms of what the goal is. Okay. What I mean by no distractions is not, oh, let the player just pass through. I mean, don't tell the player about a thing that is not relevant to whatever is happening at the moment. Always give them direct feedback. So if a player gets punched, show them that they were punched. When you're playing a fighting game like Super Smash Bros. Or like Tekken or whatever, as soon as you get hit, it's very, very, very obvious that you have gotten hit. Okay? The game needs to be continuously challenging. It needs to always be super exciting. It needs to always push you forward. It needs to always make you feel like I am very excited to know what comes next. And finally, you need to make sure that you can put the players in a flow state. The flow state is very hard to get, but that's totally fine. This is something that comes with iteration, with practice, with experience. The flow model that you can see on the right side focuses on the different requirements versus how good or how bad a player is at the game. Okay? You want to keep them somewhere where the kind of things that they can do are within their limits, while at the same time making sure that it's not too easy or too hard to get the thing. Because if it's too boring, then you're just going to make them really, really bored. They're going to be tired. They're not going to want to play the game. If it's too hard, then they're going to be too stressed. They're going to be frustrated. They're going to be angry. Okay? You want to give them something where they can feel like I can do this and I want to do this and I will do this. And this is basically how you can get them through into the flow state. Okay? So basically, the definition of a flow state is how easy or hard it is for players to play a game. You want to make sure that you can get them to lock in. You want them to do the thing where they sit in the chair and they're like, okay, leaning forward and just staring at the game and just trying to finish the level that you have put in front of them. Okay? So, we can either take a break right now for like 5-10 minutes, or we can keep going for another like I think 15 to 20 minutes, and then that would basically be the session. What would you guys prefer? Break. Okay, let's take a quick break then. Let's say we'll be back in 5 minutes, and then we'll be back. Okay, I'm going to pause the recording for now. Record and transcribe. Why isn't there a pause recording button? Okay, whatever. We'll just stop and keep going in a bit. Awesome. So 5 minutes and we'll be back. Okay. Okay. Welcome back, you guys. It's good to see you again. Last we ended up with was a break, and now we're going to be talking about a game's mechanics. So generally, whenever you guys want to make your game's mechanics, you have to think about where they exist. As I've mentioned before, a mechanic is basically a game's verb. Okay, it's about the action, it's about the doing of the thing. Okay, if you're making a game like tic-tac-toe, which is XO, it exists in space, so you have to, draw it on a paper, for example. Um, it's you put the thing on the paper, and then you have to put the X in one of the boxes and O in another one of the boxes. So each of these takes up a different space, okay? It's not just about where you're doing it, so it's not just about the paper itself. It's also very much about where you are placing your items. In a game like chess, for example, actually we'll get to the objects in a bit, but basically you also have the pieces exist on either white squares or black squares. They can't exist in the middle between them. In a game like Mario, I know I keep referencing Mario, but that's fine. You can walk around left and right. In a game like Breath of the Wild, you're not just going to walk left and right, you can also walk basically just overall anywhere around. Some games don't even have the space where you can move around. Some of the games basically you just interact with by tapping. So that's different. Mechanics also exist in time. So what this basically means is if you are playing a turn-based game, like a card game, then time is very much about what you do at each of your turns. Versus real time, when someone tries to hit you, for example, in a hack and slash game, and you decide to dodge, that's basically playing the game in real time because there's no explicit turns per se. Um, Games also exist as objects. Okay, so an object is basically a thing, obviously. But some games have objects that you can move and interact with, and some games include the main character technically as the object itself. So different chess pieces have different move sets. Okay, for example, a castle can move, like in horizontal directions or vertical directions, but not diagonal. The queen can do all the movements. The king can only do one block at a time. So basically, uh, each piece has a different mechanic of sorts. If you are using, for example, a gun versus a sword, you're going to have each of these objects have different mechanics, even though the player is using both of these pieces. Okay? Another way is basically the kind of actions a player can take. So if you are moving a piece, this is technically a mechanic of the game. If you are shooting another guy, that is a mechanic. If you are jumping, that's a mechanic. So they are all the actions that your player can actually do. Um, rules also exist, mechanics, sorry, also exist as rules. So it's very much about the kind of things that you allow your players to do. Okay? A player's skill also has a lot to do with the mechanics. So depending on how well you can play a certain game, you're able to bend a game's rules in a way that allows you to play them better. So, for example, in a game like Hollow Knight, there are certain abilities like I forgot what it was called, but basically you can jump and like smash into the ground. So sometimes if you do this at the perfect time, you are able to avoid being stuck waiting for a boss to finish a certain animation. Okay? You can just attack them directly while they do their animation, which is quite fun. Um, all right, great. And then finally, a game's chance. So sometimes you have a game with luck involved in it. Okay, it's basically probabilities. If a game gives you certain chance, if it gives you certain luck, then this is also considered a certain mechanic. Okay, for example, in a card game, it is very much up to luck to decide what your next card is going to be. It's not something um, that you can decide. All right. Oops, sorry. Okay. So on the side, you can see like general types of rules as well. Uh, and this is basically the screenshot for the rules that I mentioned before. Uh, and these are the different kinds of rules that you can have to affect your game. Okay? It's a bit much, so we can just skip through this. But if you guys want to read it as well and ask me questions later on, please feel free to do so. Naturally, whenever you have mechanics in a game, you have to balance it. So, for example, if you decided that you are going to make a game like chess, except the pawn the second pawn can move anywhere and eat anything at any point in time. That basically means that you can just attack the king at any point, and that's basically a really, really, really unbalanced pawn. Okay? So you have to think about a few things to make sure that you can balance your game correctly, such as how fair it is, how you're going to challenge your player, the choices you're going to give your player, how good or how lucky your player needs to be, whether it's focused on how quickly the player can approach the game or how smart they are, whether the game focuses on fighting against others or with others for a certain thing. If a game is long or short, so for example, if you're playing a game like Civilization or Dungeons and Dragons versus playing a game like Exploding Kittens or Hangman, you know? Um, what kind of things it can offer the player? Is it the feelings? Is it the excitement? Is it money? Is it, I don't know. Depending on what kind of things you want to offer your player, they're going to have more or less stake in it. How do you punish them? Do you punish them, for example, in a roguelike by making them restart the entire game? Or do you just hurt them a tiny bit and ask them to try something one more time? Or is it in a puzzle game style where when you lose, you basically just don't win because you haven't solved the puzzle yet? And finally, it's very much about how much freedom you offer them. So if you give the player more chances to explore the world, how filled is it? How exciting is it to actually go around? How empty is it? Or is it more like a direct game where you are just giving them very small areas for them to look at? And then depending on that, you're going to fill these areas to the brim with things and activities to do. Okay? Does this make sense? So these are all the things that you guys are going to be looking at in order to make sure that your game is um, as exciting as possible for different players and as entertaining to make sure that people stay in the flow state. The entire point of balancing your game is to make it feel like it is exciting to always keep going and see what happens next. All right? So, some of the methods to make sure that you balance your game correctly. One, remember the problem. Do you remember at the beginning we talked about listening? It's very important to know what it is that you are solving for. Okay? One of the extreme ways to actually balance the game is to either double or half your values. So let's say the enemy is doing what feels like a weird amount of damage. You're not sure if it's a lot or a little, but there's something that's just weird about it. So you decide to double your values. And then suddenly the enemy is so much stronger and so much more powerful. So you decide to half the value instead. And then suddenly the game feels a lot more like, okay, this is manageable. So then you just give it a tiny bit more or a tiny bit less, and then you're like, okay, I'm starting to get to it. Train your intuition. Your intuition is very important. It's basically the gut feeling that I mentioned before. When you're training your intuition, you're making a game feel like a certain way, something exciting, something basically you need to make sure you know what feeling good, what a game feeling good is like. And you do this basically by guessing. Okay, so let's say your character is moving too slowly. Let's say it's moving at a speed of 5. Be like, I think a speed of 8 might be really, really good. So you put a speed of 8 and your character is almost there. So you suddenly change it to 8.5 and it's perfect. So your intuition next time will probably learn that maybe a tiny bit more than what my gut feeling is saying is the actual right thing. Okay? Find out which method works best for you. So basically, from the things we mentioned above, try these. Find out what ways uh, you want to work on your game to get it balanced. So, for example, you might decide to have an Excel sheet with good, better, or best. You might have something that's like just smashing values into the screen and seeing what works best for you. Depending on what method you usually prefer to work in, you can find a good way to balance your game out in one way or another. Um, Make sure that whenever you are building your game, nothing is set in stone until you are confident in the way it's set, which is basically making sure that you're going to iterate. Because you're going to try something, you're going to do something, you're going to make it work, and then you're going to remove it. And then you're going to try over and over and over. So that's basically balancing your game. And then finally, the best way to do it is to ask players to try out your game. If you ask enough players to do it, and then you can see whether they are succeeding too much, succeeding just enough, or not succeeding at all. And then depending on that, you're going to get people's you're going to get the feeling that you want into the game. Again, because if you know what the player is going to do, and 7 out of 10 players finish your level, that's a good number. If 2 out of 10 players finish your level, that's pretty bad. And if 10 out of 10 players finish your level, then that might be a bit concerning if you wanted to make this like a really hard level. It might be good if that's exactly what you're going for. Okay? So let the players do the balancing for you. Whenever you want to create good puzzles, you need to know what it is that you're aiming for. And a puzzle is not just, oh, I wonder what's behind this door. Oh, I wonder blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it's very much about how am I going to attack this guy so that this thing falls on this dude's head and has me finish the speedrunning level as quickly as possible. So the way to do it is to know where you want to go by highlighting the goal. You have to make sure it is easy to start and easy to experiment in the level. Make sure that you let the players know if they're doing something good by letting them progress, or not progress if they're doing something bad. But make sure that it's obvious that they are either going in the right way or not. Okay? By slowly increasing the difficulty of the game, you're going to let players that find something easy to do to move as quickly as possible through it. And you can help the players that don't know how to do this as easily as possible to actually take their time as well. Okay? Give people a rest from one puzzle or like one game by giving them other things to solve. So a lot of time you might be doing a main quest and you might get tired and decide to go on a side quest because that seemed a bit more entertaining. Do that. That's not a problem. Um, let puzzles that you've let players solve before build up on the ones that are coming after. So let's say you taught players that putting a box on a um I don't know, on a pressure plate opens a door, and you've taught them that I don't know, TNT explodes. Okay? So what you decide to do is you make a thing where you need to close the door in order to win the level. So you give them TNT, you give them a pressure plate, and you give them a door. And then you put the TNT on the pressure plate and then you light it up and then you run through the door. TNT explodes, door closes because there's nothing on the pressure plate. So basically, you just teach them to build on one puzzle from one puzzle to another. Okay? Don't be shy to give players hints. It's always, always good to let players try something else and just nudge them in the right direction. Because once you do this, this actually lets the players keep going. So it's totally, totally fine for you to sometimes give the player the answer itself. It's not a problem. Okay? Next, we've got interest curves. So interest curves are what keeps the player in the flow state to a certain extent, and they keep them excited. Okay? You need to make sure that when you start the game, you go from point A, which is I don't know what this game is about, to point B, which is a very exciting, very hype moment. Then you can just calm it down a tiny bit and then slowly start to introduce the player to more of the mechanics, to more of the exciting things that can happen. Give them a first boss, then let them explore the world, going from point C to point D, and then suddenly they get to like what they think might be the main boss, which is point E. After that, uh, all hope is lost, everything sucks. I don't know what I'm going to be doing. And then suddenly they find something magnificent that takes them all the way to point G, which is the super exciting actual final boss. After they beat it, uh, basically you just close up the game, you wrap up all the loose ends, and then that's the entirety of the game. Movies usually use this, series usually use this, and games can use this as well. So make sure that when you're building your game, you are taking advantage of the best moments there are. Make sure that the player has time to rest after an exciting moment because you don't want to keep pushing them too hard, too far, too much. Okay? Everyone needs a time to get excited and then a time to just chill and relax a bit. Okay? Stories. Whenever you are building your story, you have to understand the story stack, which is the thing on the side, on the right. Okay? A story stack is basically where you want the thing to be. So is it a fantasy world? Is it a real world? What is it that you are getting the players into? Okay? After this is the kind of actions that you can take. After this is the economy, so how the world actually barters with each other, buys things, sells things, what is it that they care about? Is it gold? Is it gems? Is it papers? Is it whatever? Next is the entire world, which is kind of weird to have the world above the economy, but you can basically have different cities and make it believable that people can live in this place. And finally, on top of it all is the story, which is the thing that is the easiest to change because it's practically just words that you are filling up um, in the sections that you have. I don't mean that writing a story is easy. I just mean that updating a story as time goes on is easier than the rest of the stuff. Okay? So the story supports the game. The Legend of Zelda focused mostly on puzzle solving. Not Zelda, not Link, not any of those guys. Um, you usually play this game for the excitement, for the exploration, for whatever, but very rarely do you actually play it for the story. Even though uh, the characters are very exciting, they're very wonderful to be around, that's not what matters. What matters is the fact that you get a chance to explore the world, um, get the things that you want to get. So, for example, items breaking is part of the economy. You get to see the kind of actions in the world, and obviously, this is all built on a certain fantasy of exploration, of checking out the different world, of trying to get challenged, etc., etc. Okay, so the best way to build a good world is to pretend. Sorry, I mean, obviously you're going to pretend, but it's very much about building a world that seems real to you and something that feels like people could actually live there. Okay? Ask yourself the questions of how do people eat? Where do people get their stuff from? Um, are there like houses that people live in, or is everyone just wandering around? Is everyone okay, or is everyone suddenly infected or something of the sort? You know, like if you're building a zombie game, then you have to think about what kind of world it would be if zombies existed. Um, and then finally, walk with the heroes. So check out how other heroes existed, check out what other people have written, and not steal, but very much copy that and take inspiration from it. All right? Do we have any questions? Three act structure, 100%. Yes. So Muhammad is talking about the three act structure, which is basically what your interest curves are going to be like as well. But yes, 100%. Okay, more important things about storytelling. Please follow your own rules. If people don't have guns, don't give someone a gun. You can give someone a wand that shoots sparks the same way a gun does, but don't give them a gun. Okay? Make it easy to exist in your world. Make it so we live in our own world, obviously, and we know some of the unspoken rules of the world, such as, you can't fly, for example, or buildings exist in certain places, and you can find, I don't know, a car shop or like not a car shop, sorry, like a mini market with cars parked in front of it. So if you're building a world with mini markets and like a city and stuff, it makes perfect sense to just look at the world around you and build a world that kind of looks like that. And this is basically where cliches come in. Don't be scared of using cliches because this just makes it easier to follow the game that you're making. Sometimes you don't even need the words when it comes to building a story. Sometimes a picture is enough. So an example of this is when you play a game like BioShock and you just look at the ads around, this automatically gives you a feeling of what the world that the game is being held in is like. And obviously, if you want to write good stories, it's always good to learn a bit about storytelling or a lot about storytelling. All right. The reason you need a story is basically just to give people a beginning, a middle, and an end. But the thing is that sometimes a story isn't always the most necessary part of your game. All right. It is the spice. It is the thing that adds to whatever richness you have. Um, and sometimes you can also use it to like explain why a certain thing looks the way it does. In Silent Hill, they did not have the capability to render the entire map. But at the same time, there was nothing stopping you from looking forward until someone was like, what if we just add fog? And suddenly the fog was able to hide all the far away areas and not make it seem weird when suddenly something jumped up from you from the thick fog. And it was basically because it was technically not rendered. There was another game, I forgot what it was, but basically all they could do was render green smoke or green fog. So what they did is they were like, "Khalas, this is poison." And everyone was like, "Okay, I guess it's just poison." So sometimes this is a good way to explain technical difficulties inside a game. A story can very much do this for you in one way or another. Okay? This was basically it. Game design is a very, very, very big topic. There are a lot of things that we haven't covered. Technical design, narrative design, characters, playtesting, music, and player psychology are just a few of them. Um, to summarize and to just give you guys a few parting words, the most important thing that I want you guys to get out of the gaming academy and out of the things that you're doing is I want you to make something you love. Can be a very, very small thing, totally fine. That's what I want you guys to start with. I want you guys to test, to create, to experiment, to make something weird and different and exciting. And don't be shy to ask around and ask for help. Most importantly is know what you are building and actually go towards it and build towards it. Don't be afraid to change the ideas that you have. That's totally, totally, totally fine. As long as you know that this change is going to make for a better game. Okay? Don't be like, oh yeah, I really want guns, but all I have is goats, and goats don't carry guns, so maybe I'm gonna add like a machine gun goat, and then I'm gonna add enemies for the goat to fight, and then what if it was in space? And maybe let's just go from Earth to space. Please don't do that. Please, please, please don't do that. Just have an entire goal, uh, as small as possible, and then build towards that in whatever ways you need. Okay? And most importantly, please rest. Okay? And I don't just mean take naps, I don't mean just eat well. I mean actually let yourself wonder, let yourself think, let yourself just let your head just go, and let your thoughts come to you instead of trying to chase them yourself. Final thing is recommendations. So these are some of the books that I recommend. The Art of Game Design is what this lecture is based off to a certain extent. A Theory of Fun is a very nice book about the basics of game dev. الخلاف في فن تصميم الألعاب is a book a friend of mine, Fawzi Musmar, wrote. He usually gives a bunch of these sessions as well on game design, and if you get a chance to see him, say hello. The Game Design Workshop is a book that forces you to actually make your games. I read, I think, 4 or 5 of these chapters, and then I paused because they asked me to do something that I did not have the time to do, so I just stopped reading the book. Probably should get back to it. And then finally, The Design of Everyday Things helps you look at what the simplest things like doors are like and why they are built the way they are. Speaking of, I really hate doors. Generally, I think they suck, especially when they're badly designed. But that's a story for a different day. Some YouTube channels if you don't like to read. There's Daryl Talked Games, GNTK, GDC 2025, and there's obviously us as different channels that you can look at for game development. A lot of them go into specifically like the game design of stuff, so always a very good place to look. Thank you so much for attending. If you guys have any questions, please feel free. You can also reach me out on all of these plus Discord, so knock yourselves out. If we don't have any questions, that was basically it for me. And yeah, that's all. Awesome. Thank you guys for attending. Great to see you. If If we do have any questions, can you guys just raise your hand? If not, I will just simply stop the recording. Awesome. Great. Yalla. See you guys next week then, and take care.